10, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and thank you for joining me for episode 10 of the Write or Flight podcast. It's been a long 10 weeks, a lot's happened, the channel's been evolving with the rebrand and everything like that, but it's been a great journey, and I hope for many, many more Write or Flight podcasts, just like I hope this one will turn out well. Thank you for watching me, whether or not you're on the YouTube side or the Kick side. Hail and howdy to Legatus Legionus, the bot supreme doing the Lord's work on YouTube and Kick. And of course, hail and howdy to Dr. Rachel over on the YouTube side. It's great to have you here. And anyone else who's just lurking, it's great to have you here. I'm sure there's going to be a few lurkers, a few people cycling in as we get a little bit into it. And of course, once Adam finishes the daily dive, we'll have a few more people coming in over from there. But how is everybody doing on this frigid day? Even Florida is getting cold. Last night, it dropped down to, I think, 30 degrees at one point, which is absolutely insane for Orlando. And I know the rest of the country is experiencing temperatures much worse than that. I'm sure a lot of people are even below 0 Fahrenheit over the last couple of weeks. So I hope everyone's staying warm. Everyone's doing well. Hail I Sam over on the YouTube side. Great to have you back, my friend, as well. I'm cold, chat, and it doesn't help that I'm still sick. I've been sick for the last, week, maybe 2 weeks at this point. It's not a bad illness, though. That's the crappy thing about it, is I could deal with, getting the flu, getting it really bad for 2 or 3 days, and then moving on and just being fine. This level of flu or whatever that I have right now is just consistently inconvenient for weeks and weeks on end. And I'm just ready for it to be over. I'm ready for some warmer temperatures to help flush my system or whatever needs to happen. But it's getting tiresome at this point. It really is. And I know it's happening to a lot of people right now. There's a lot of illness going around throughout the country right now. So I know I'm lucky in the amount of sickness that I got, but it is getting annoying at this point. For this week, is anyone planning on watching the Super Bowl? I don't know how much my audience are sports fans. I'm definitely not a sports fan. I will probably not be watching the Super Bowl. I'll more likely be watching the Artemis launch if it does end up being on the 8th. But who knows? Maybe my audience has some crossover with some sports fans. Is anybody excited for the Super Bowl? I think the Seahawks are playing. I don't know what the other team is. That really tells you how much I don't follow sports in the slightest. I never really have. I mean, I played sports in middle school and high school, football, swimming, basketball, stuff like that, and I always enjoyed playing sports, but watching it is just boring to me. Honestly, it really is very boring. And I understand the appeal. I understand why people get into it. I understand the psychology of it. It just doesn't work for me. So I'm wondering if anyone out there in the chat is feeling the same way, or if you're hyped for the Super Bowl and whatever sport is coming next, the next season of, I don't know what's next. What comes after football? Is it basketball that's going to be the next big one? Or baseball's more spring, I think. So still a few more months till baseball. Dr. Rachel said, I watch the Quidditch World Cups. Otherwise, I don't follow sports. Yeah, Quidditch, I could see myself following. And Sam said, you made a loyal watcher in me. Hail. Hail, Sam. I appreciate that. I really do. You've been very kind in the chats the last couple weeks, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I'm able to reach out and give people entertainment that they enjoy, because that's at the end of the day what I'm trying to do. Maybe ask questions, maybe incite some intellectual thoughts, but entertainment is really what I want to do at the end of it, and entertainment that I would enjoy. I'm trying to make stuff that I would be a fan of, because I'm not seeing that on YouTube. I haven't really seen any YouTuber who's balancing the science and the science fiction like I attempt to do, and that's exactly what I would want. I know it's a niche. I know this channel will probably never be in the millions or anything like that because of how niche I've gone with it, but I'm hoping to find that niche, if nothing else, to hang out with people who have similar interests to myself. Sam said, kind of hard to worry about sports. No, I I don't know, man. Get kind of hard to worry about it. I really don't care. I know a lot of people used to care, and they've kind of dipped off in the last few years because of the current state of the NFL and stuff like that. So it's really getting hard for people to worry in general. I think I'm not as much of an anomaly as I used to be. 10 years or so, it would have been absolutely insane to talk about not watching the Super Bowl or anything like that, or 20 years ago or whatever. And nowadays, I mean, it's still a big event, but it's more common to find people who are interested in other things, going out to the movies, or just ignoring the day entirely. I had to be told when the Super Bowl was. I've been told who's playing, but I forgot. I will absolutely be way more excited for the Artemis launch if it does end up being that day. Which brings us nicely into our first topic, which is just like last week, just kind of have to acknowledge it, pay lip service to it as the story develops further. Sam, you're absolutely correct as well. With everything going on in the world, sports do seem frivolous, but at the same time, that's what kind of makes them important in my mind. When stuff is going on in the world where everything seems dire and nihilistic, entertainment of whatever variety of movies, television, sports, anything like that can be incredibly beneficial to your psychology. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't let sports consume you or anything like that. But with the state of the world, having something that you can escape into and just forget about the rest of the world is a valuable thing in whatever form it takes. So, if anything, yes, it is very difficult to focus on sports and worry about sports considering the state of the world. That makes it more valuable in my mind to find something like that. More important to find that escapism that sports or entertainment can offer. But yes, it's definitely difficult in the world that we live in. Legato Sports has become too big business, in your opinion. I can agree with that. It feels big business, just like Hollywood does. The producers, the businessmen at the top of these entertainment industries, they clearly don't actually care about these genres, about sports or anything like that. They're just trying to capitalize off the money and maximize their profits, which I can respect that. I don't have anything against businessmen, but when they do that, they corrode what made these things special. Doctor Who, for example, if you were to focus purely on money making, which they're not doing, to be fair, they're more focused on ideology. But if you were focused on money making, you would never make the type of stories that Doctor Who classically has, the really thoughtful stories. It'd be more action packed if they were focused on profit, and that would really degrade what Doctor Who is. And I think we're seeing that across all these different franchises. Dr. Rachel says, I say I'm very true, which is why we're going to blast off Earth to another planet. Yes, that seems very apt. The world is so much to worry about. Sports are so boring that we're literally trying to blast off to the moon and to Mars to get away with it. And with that, let's transition into NASA saying due to the weather, their planned fueling of the Artemis 2 rocket will be pushed back to February 2nd, which is today. So this post is from a couple days ago, and the wet dress rehearsal will determine the launch date. But because of this pushback from the weather, the earliest launch date was moved from February 6th to February 8th. That's not much of a difference. It's switching it from Friday to Sunday of this week, actually. So we're getting a little bit more firm dating on when this is going to happen. And like they mentioned there, the wet dress rehearsal will determine the specific date. And as of today, they went into the wet dress rehearsal as of 2 hours ago. If you guys want, we can pull up the actual live stream that they have. It's pretty boring. It's just showing the status of the things. But if we want something in the background while I talk, I can absolutely pull that up if you guys are interested. But the wet dress rehearsal is happening right now, which means they're fueling up, they're running through the countdown, everything like that, doing a mock launch basically with everything except, igniting the fuel and launching entirely. So depending on how that goes with the weather, the humidity, the frigid cold that's going on right now, it will determine if that February 8th date will be the real date or they'll push it back. They have dates all the way through April at this point. The fact that they're fueled up, though, leads me and others like me to believe that it will be in the near future, in the next week or two at the absolute latest. But we'll find out depending on the results of this dress rehearsal. Yeah, I'm gonna keep NASA's feed open to see if anything comes up with that wet dress rehearsal, because I don't know how long it's gonna take. They started that about 2 hours ago, so if that goes very quickly, we might have a firm date sometime this afternoon, maybe even during the stream. That's my hope, is that we get a firm date so I can schedule and, pimp out the launch stream, because I will be live whenever the launch does take place. I'll bring up the NASA feed and everything like that, and we'll react to it. It'll be a very laid back stream. Those live streams from NASA can be quite dull, so I'll be trying to add commentary, and we'll talk about random stuff while we're filling in the gaps and whatnot. But for the launch, I definitely want to be there reacting to it live with all of you and anyone who's not watching the Super Bowl, because if it's on Sunday, that's really going to hurt my numbers, that's going to hurt their numbers and everything like that. So providing a space for the non-football fans to have something entertaining is something that I'd like to offer regardless. I might even just do a gaming stream during the Super Bowl if the launch gets delayed even further than the 8th, because there are people like me who just don't care and want something else entertaining. It's dumb. It's going to kill my viewership for that stream, but it's something that I would appreciate if I were still in the audience rather than a YouTuber myself. But looking back at the chat, Legata says it is also turns off a lot of people where billionaire owners and millionaire players demanding billions from taxpayers for stadiums and arena. The optics of greed. You're absolutely correct on that. I don't think taxpayers should be paying for anything in the entertainment sphere, period. As much as I love the entertainment sphere, I don't think it's the government's job to subsidize it, to bail out these studios or anything like that. And the same is true of sports. It's just not the government's job, but that's getting a little political. Sam, what's their purpose, though? Their purpose? Are you talking about the NFL or the Artemis mission? Legatus, the super board of the No Fun League. That actually is pretty apt. The NFL calling it the No Fun League. I think I might start calling it that as well. Dr. Rachel, if it is Sunday, then it'll be Super Bowl versus Olympics versus rocket launch. That's right. There are Olympic stuff going on. I believe the opening ceremony is on Sunday as well for the Winter Olympics. I'm not following that either because it's an extension of sports, which I just don't really care about. I respect it and I understand it. I'm not one of those people who are like, you're stupid for liking sports or anything like that. I understand the psychology. It just doesn't appeal to me. So for the launch, the purpose of the launch, so the wet launch is just like I said, doing a test drive of everything, doing a fake launch, testing all the systems, doing a fake countdown and everything like that. But the Artemis 2, which this mission is they're launching in the SLS rocket, getting the Orion space capsule into orbit. There's 4 astronauts. I don't remember their names off the top of my head. And their job will be to get into orbit. They're going to do some orbital test maneuvers around Earth, and then they're going to slingshot out to the moon, orbit around it, and come back. This is a test flight in every way, shape, or form. Every stage of it is to test for further missions. The best example is Apollo 8. If you know the Apollo missions very well, this is the one that's just designed to make sure the rocket and the Orion are able to get to the moon, come around, come back, no issues with everything like that, and be prepared for Artemis 3, which is where we'll actually have astronauts land physically on the moon for the first time since the 70s. It's time finally to go back. They had very good reasons to not go back after the Apollo missions. First and foremost is their budget. I don't know if anyone else has seen the graph of NASA's budget leading up to the Apollo missions with the space race and everything like that, but at the end of the space race, their budget tanked by more than half. And that's when they started to reinvest into the shuttle program, for example. So they didn't have the money to go back to the moon, and they didn't need that technology, the Saturn V rocket or anything like that. So they moved their resources into developing the space shuttle. So they weren't able to go financially back. It wasn't as viable, and there's not a whole lot of point. You can only collect so many moon rocks, and that's all that they were really doing in the early stages. Now, the Artemis program, their plan is to, yes, test it with 2, go there on 3, and lay the groundwork for a permanent moon base, which will help them conduct research and prepare for colonizing Mars. So that's the Artemis program's plan, and we're in the early stages of it. NASA has been mismanaging it, in my opinion, for a very long time. Artemis 2's launch, that's going to happen in the next week or two, was originally planned for 2022. They are behind schedule so very much. I'm glad they're finally here, and I like a lot of the stuff that they've been saying surrounding this launch, but it's very, very late. I'm disappointed with their managerial skills up to this point, but hopefully it looks like they're getting their act together a little bit. They've secured funding for the next year. It was in danger with the current administration trying to slash it in half, but they managed to keep a good budget, and that'll help propel Artemis into the future. Just keep with the current plan. You guys have been doing a terrible job so far getting to this point, but now you're doing a good job at this stage, and keep going. Keep with this level of dedication and skill, and we could really be seeing Artemis 3 going up probably 2028 is what my guess would be at this point. Delays, though, maybe not even until 2030. But yeah, that's the plan with the Artemis missions. I am not one of those people who are upset that it's called the Artemis mission. There are actually people who are actually upset that this set of missions from NASA is called the Artemis mission. People are calling it woke, saying, oh, they had to name this one after a female god, unlike the Apollo missions, which were so masculine. That just fundamentally misunderstands mythology. That's my argument for it, is mythology. They're not calling it Artemis just because they need to have female empowerment. They're doing because Artemis is the actual goddess of the moon. Apollo was the goddess of the sun. Apollo never made sense to me, and now they're correcting that in a sense of we're going to go land on the moon. We're going to live on the moon, which makes way more sense to use Artemis as the figurehead, as the title. And the only other one that would really make sense from Greek mythology is Selene. So Artemis and Selene are the moon goddesses and the moon titans. So using them makes sense whether or not they're female. But those apparently those thoughts are controversial. ISAM says, yeah, the Olympics kind of got fucked up by France. Yeah, those French Olympics a couple years ago were rough. What's SpaceX doing, or is this only NASA? This one is specifically NASA. I don't believe SpaceX is involved at all. Like I said, it's the SLS rocket, which is a NASA rocket. They're not using the Falcon 9 or whatever that is, the SpaceX rocket. SpaceX right now is gearing up for a major Starship launch. That's what they're calling their shuttle, is Starship, and they're gearing up for that, but they're not connected to this. Elon Musk is way more focused on Mars than the moon. He's helping out a little bit. I think like Artemis 3 will be in conjunction with SpaceX, I believe, and not to a huge degree, but their satellite network, I think, is going to help. In minor ways, SpaceX will be involved in this, but he's way more focused on Mars, bypassing the moon entirely. NASA, because of this mismanagement, in my opinion, and the struggles that they've gone through in the last 25 years, because NASA's been struggling since the 90s. I really think since the shuttle missions shut down, they fell out of the public eye quite a lot, and that hurt their budget. That hurt the type of talent that they were getting. And a lot of the best talent is being taken up by these private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and stuff like that. So they've been struggling for a long time, and they're behind the ball. I think they need to go to the moon to catch up, to get to where SpaceX is currently. Yeah, SpaceX focusing on Mars and that Starship. Starship looks so freaking cool. That thing is massive. It can fit like 100 people in the end is the plan. So 100-person manned mission to Mars is going to happen in the very near future thanks to Elon Musk. It's some very exciting stuff. I would absolutely volunteer for that mission. If Elon Musk came to me and said, point a random direction in the sky, all right, you're going to go that way until you die, I'd probably do it. If I could bring my wife, I definitely would do it. No questions asked. My wife's going to go with me. We're going to go out into the dark as far as we can. But I'm a weird man, apparently, is what I've been told. So yeah, SpaceX is not involved at this stage, but they will be involved in later stages, I believe, in minor ways. Dr. Rachel, about time they got the naming aligned with mythology. Yeah, this name makes a whole lot more sense, and think people are reaching for things to be offended by, even when they're not actually interested in it. The people accusing it of being feminist garbage or whatever don't actually care about space travel, don't actually care about mythology, and it's just rage bait. And I'm sick of rage bait. I actually have a very low opinion of rage baiters. Sam, there's probably some corruption at NASA. That is 100% true. That's why I've been more behind SpaceX the last few years than NASA, because they're just managing things better. They have a lot more clear goals, and they're accomplishing so much. In the last 10 years, the progress that they've made in reusable rockets has been immense. Their satellite network with Starlink and all the technology that they're developing for their Mars bases, they've just been doing the real science and doing it so very well, progressing so quickly, but not at the expense of the science. It isn't just do it as quickly as possible, screw the safety measures or anything like that. Like, they're still incredibly safe. SpaceX is who NASA relies on when people get stranded on the ISS. They don't count on themselves, they don't count on the Russians. SpaceX is where the real science is going, where the real talent is going. So there's a talent issue at NASA, there's a corruption issue at NASA. It's the government. So it's probably mismanaged as hell. Bureaucracy is one of the things that bothers me most in life. And I think bureaucracy transcends political divides and affects left and right and everything like that. If I'm anything, I'm an anti-bureaucrat. That if you need to sum up my political position without getting too much into left or right or anything, I'm an anti-bureaucrat, and bureaucracy is poisoning so many of these industries. So much of science is poisoned by bureaucracy, trying to get grant funding, grease the right palms, and everything like that. Where science as a whole, research is suffering, and NASA is just another example of that. SpaceX is able to stand apart partially because it's so self-funded. Elon has the money where he doesn't need to play those games to the same degree as everybody else. He still has to obey federal regulation and play nice with NASA and the US government and everything like that, but he doesn't need to rely on them for funding, for grants, for a lot of this stuff, and that's been absolutely phenomenal. And now he's building Starbase out in Texas, so he doesn't even need to rely on Kennedy Space Center as much. He still launches from here. There's still infrastructure here at Kennedy, but he's trying to be as self-reliant as possible, and that's what's making the science that he's doing work so well and progress as well as it is. He's able to stand up as apart as possible, and it's really, really benefiting him. Dr. Rachel says, heck yeah, let's explore space. All right, my wife's on board. We're going out into the dark. Sam, hell yeah, I would do that too. Why not? See, Sam, you're fitting in here absolutely well. I want to find more people like you, Sam. It's difficult. That's what I said earlier, that this is a very niche topic that I'm going into with this channel. But finding people like you, Sam, is exactly what I'm trying to find. People who are passionate about the fiction and the science. It's niche. It's absolutely niche. But that's me. That's me. I'm passionate about science. I can go into deep dives about the great filter, the Fermi paradox, and certain aspects of quantum physics and astronomy, and just have a blast. My wife is probably so annoyed with me sometimes because I can talk her ear off about very, very obscure things. Like, I'm reading a book right now by Brian Greene, and the section I'm in is about string theory. So I'm learning about string theory, getting more information on it. And I don't feel like I understand something unless I can articulate it to somebody else and explain it to someone else. That's kind of my litmus test for, did I actually understand this? Did I absorb this information and comprehend it properly? And unfortunately, she's the person living with me, so it's either tell her everything I've learned or tell my dog, and my dog's not going to understand it. So, but yeah, just doing that. I can also do that exact same thing with Doctor Who, with Star Trek, and fall in love with it. So finding like-minded people who can have these deep discussions and this passion for science, science fiction, and just fiction in general, because I'm not just restricting myself to science fiction. As a writer, I've written fantasy before. I want to write other stories that aren't just science fiction, but there is a symbiotic relationship between the arts and the sciences that I want to highlight. Going on, ISAM says, "What's Russian up to space wise?" So NASA's been relying on Russia for a very long time. A lot of the launches to the ISS have been through Russia. They're a big financial backer of the ISS. The ISS is basically America and Russia's babies. And I think that's very important post Cold War to see that type of camaraderie. Not going to dive into the Ukrainian war or anything like that, but I don't know of any exclusive research that they're doing besides helping out the ISS. I'm not an expert on their space program, but as far as I know, it's primarily focused on the ISS, which is a good thing. I'm all for international cooperation in a sense like that. The UN, I think, is very mismanaged, but the ISS is a lot better situation than that. Dr. Rachel, I think more of the world is waking up to the ridiculousness of wokeness. So rage baiters are recognizing that their time is ending. So they're trying to find rage in everything just to stay relevant. That's a very good way of putting it. The culture war is on the decline. And yes, always stay vigilant, but we're coming to an era where we need to hang up our holsters and just say, all right, we've won enough to be functional, and now let's move forward to make things better. I was talking about it on Roundtable, where the Skinner boxes, Rachel was describing to me the Skinner box, and it's exactly what I was saying on Roundtable. If you continually punish Hollywood for every decision they make, including the good decisions, they'll never know how to improve, and nothing will ever get better. You need to reward the good and call out the bad in equal measure. Before I read more of the comments, hail to the Adam raid. Adam the Renaissance Nerd has finished his daily dive, and we have the people coming in from over there. So welcome in everyone who came over from that side, including the Weasel and Real Waden Nation. I believe you came over there as well. Welcome in. It's great to have you all here. We're just having some nice little discussions before we dive into the topics of the day. And I do have a few more, couple pop culture and some more science, of course, as always. Dr. Rachel, kind of sad to see that science is a niche topic these days. So thank you for making this outlook for us, Jed. Yeah, it is. It is very sad. It is very sad to see that no one cares about science. When I try to talk to other people just to, test the waters to see if they're interested in astronomy or anything like that scientifically, because I'm fascinated by science as a whole. I study astronomy and quantum physics and stuff like that, but I'm still going to sit down and listen to a biologist or whatever. But most people I talk to, they just glaze over and try to change the topic. Science is being forgotten. Science is not, yes, they're teaching in school, but it's one of those topics that go in one ear and out the other, and it's all about regurgitating facts in school. It's not about understanding the framework of reality anymore. It's not about understanding our universe. It's not seeing the beauty in it, the building blocks of creation. It's, yes, I know Isaac Newton was born in 1600 or whatever it is, and that's the thing with history and science these days is they're taught in schools. It's so old, factual, and misses the entire point of those subjects, and everybody hates those subjects as a result, meaning that no one goes into it to find the true passion that can be derived from those types of incredible topics. Sam, yeah, string theory seems like a reach. I read it. There's not really a lot of convincing stuff there, in my opinion. I agree with that, Sam. The string theory is so hard to verify. Yes, there's basis for it in the mathematics, but we're not going to be able to have any experimental physics for it. There's no way that we can just prove string theory is a thing or make the theory sound. I don't think it's ever going to be proven in that sense. I don't think it's ever going to be developed more than it currently is because it's so out there and beyond our physical realm of understanding. It is important to find what it's trying to solve, though. So string theory came up as a solution to the unified theory of everything, or the God theorem, I believe Einstein called it, which he dedicated the last years of his life into finding. In physics, we have traditional physics like Newtonian physics or relativity from Einstein that explain our day-to-day life, the worlds that we interact with, the universe that we can observe very, very well. And then we have quantum physics, which describe the subatomic world, atoms, protons, everything like that. Those rules are vastly different. What applies in quantum mechanics does not apply to quantum or I mixed them up. But what applies to planetary motion doesn't apply to protons or anything like that. They're such distinct worlds and they don't work well together. Things fall apart mathematically when you try to integrate them. So string theory was proposed as a way to bridge the gap between these two, and it came down to the math doesn't work in our three-dimensional plus space or time, four-dimensional space. So does it work in five? Does it work in six? Does it work in seven? And they keep pushing it back, and it almost works in 10 dimensions of space and one dimension of time. But at that point, does that even mean anything? So it's important to find that unified theory, but string theory, I just don't think is going to be it at this point. Rachel says, chat, don't be fooled. Even though I listen, he still tries to explain science to our dog. It's been known to happen. It's been known to happen. I won't argue with that. Legatus Mile High Club would be so underwhelming of term for this. The astronomical high club. Yeah, I think somebody's banged on the ISS before, and I would brag about it to hell and back. We talked about it briefly last week with the hypothesis that there might have been a pregnancy aboard the ISS. I don't believe it was a pregnancy, but if there was, yeah, joining that club, the 700 Mile High Club or whatever it is, I would brag about it. And being the first people to bang on the moon or Mars, Mile High Club means nothing under those circumstances. Ariel, I see that you commented something earlier, but YouTube took it out. I see the okay. Let me scroll back to see if I can retrieve it. Yeah, it's not showing up for me, Ariel, unfortunately. The Weasel says, what are your thoughts on the increase in X-class solar flares we keep getting? So the sun goes in cycles. We've seen this for a long time. There are periods of high activity and low activity. The most notable periods are in 11-year cycles, where there's this uptick for a few years and then downtick for a few years. But there's also a much larger scale where it goes even farther. So there's these little variations of 11 years, big variations over centuries and stuff like that. Just like the Earth. The Earth goes through periods. Our electromagnetic field gets stronger and weaker. It's a natural order of the universe where there are periods of high activity and low activity. And we're just getting into a period of high activity, and there's not really anything we can do about it, but there's also nothing that we need to be particularly concerned about. Yes, there could be a massive solar flare that causes massive issues, but they're extraordinarily rare. And what needs to be remembered is the statistical likelihood of something occurring, because the sun is 8 light minutes away, 1 astronomical unit away. That is immensely far. So there's a distance, and the solar flares have to line up perfectly in the vastness of the solar system to strike us. So the likelihood of a planet devastating solar flare is already immensely low. And then if one were to occur, the likelihood of it being angled just perfectly to hit the Earth is astronomically low as well. So stacked on each other, I wouldn't be concerned necessarily. It could absolutely happen, but it's in the territory of an asteroid hitting Earth that it's such a statistical unlikelihood and impossible to predict until it's, too late, that there's no point in being overly concerned about it. But the increase in solar flares that you're talking about is entirely explained. Scientists have been predicting it for years, and they're all saying, yeah, it's nothing to be concerned about at this point. We're just going to see some more northern lights than usual. This stuff we know about. It's not a surprise to people in the know. Ariel, okay. Here's the scene. You're slowly flying over some waving grass. As you move over and land into a patch of open plains, you get off the fighter and move around and check your surroundings. Probably because I used the... So, I got that message, Ariel, the okay one, but I don't know what you're following up on besides that. And you use the smut word? Jesus, Ariel, I have no idea what you're talking about. Legatus, Jed has categories and rolls the dice with donations, the chat, and mold the story. So yes, I did want to bring that up earlier in the stream as well. So a segment that I'm going to do at the end of this stream is what I call Chat Choose Your Own Adventure. In that, I use a combination of super chats and dice rolls to craft short stories. They usually end up being weird as hell. Like last week, you guys made me do a Cthulhu tentacle erotica about a homeless wrestler. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird, but it was a lot of fun. Absolutely. So with that, it's a highest super chat starting at $1 can override any category change, like picking the genre. And then high super chat starting at $5 can introduce a surprise twist, like in that Cthulhu one. You could have said, "Oh, $5, Jesus Christ shows up and evaporates all the Cthulhu monsters." That could have, and I would have to make it work. That's the goal, is to try to make it still work with all those super chats. So if anybody has something that they'd like at this stage that you know, hey, I want Jed to write a parody of Star Trek today, super chats are absolutely welcome prior to getting to that segment. So have time to think about it. Think about what you kind of want me to craft today. And for those of you who don't want to send YouTube money, which I absolutely understand, there is a pinned link for the Stream Elements tipping link, which goes directly to me. Or on Kick, if you're watching on Kick, subscriptions and donations, sub donations count as well for that. So yeah, think about it. See if you guys want anything like that, and we'll craft the story. We'll craft a story together, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. If we reach $100 super chats across the entire stream, like the total of money earned is $100, I will schedule a second stream called Story Forge, where I actually write out the short story that you've helped me create, and my wife, the beautiful Dr. Rachel in the chat, will draw some original artwork for it. On the first Story Forge, she had to draw vampire werewolf erotica. It always ends up being erotica. You guys are all perverts. I mean, I might be too, but you know, better to yell at the chat for that. But yes, if anybody's interested in having an opinion about that early, donations will absolutely apply now if you want to affect that later on. But we still have a couple topics to get into. I'm just trying to keep up with the chat. You guys have been so active today, and I truly appreciate it. You guys have been absolutely fantastic and creating discussions. If this stream ends up being so fueled by chat discussions that I only have time for chat choose your own adventure, I will be totally fine with that. The topics are just kind of there to fuel things, talk about things if they're relevant and I really want to talk about them, but they're to buy time till chat choose your own adventure. So please keep chatting away. It's absolutely appreciated. Ariel said, yeah, because you use the smart word. Sam. So I submitted a paper talking about why we shouldn't teach Newton's formula for gravitational attractions when we have Einstein. That's very interesting, Sam. I get that to a certain extent. A lot of Newtonian physics was counteracted by Einstein's, and Einstein's relativity and stuff like that are more applicable, and they're absolutely proven to be correct whenever they're used, especially relativity and the way it affects time and everything like that. And Newton's ideas of absolute space have fairly been disproved at this point. So there are issues with Newtonian physics. That isn't to say there's anything wrong with Newton. He's probably one of the smartest people to ever have lived. However, there are some stuff about his formulas, especially orbital mechanics, that are essential to the way that we operate in space travel. So cherry picking what we need and what is still provably correct from Einstein or from Newton, excuse me, is important. But when it comes to gravitational attraction, you're just confusing these students if you're teaching both. That's something that Brian Greene actually talked about in the Fabric of the Cosmos book that I'm reading from him. Is nowadays in science, they're trying to move away from teaching you the entire history of these concepts, because this modern physics has been around for almost 500 years at this point, and thoughts and views and theories and experiments have changed so much over that course that there are contradictions. We have our current understanding, which is as solid as we can absolutely make it. But if you teach down the line, you don't know if someone's going to lock onto Mach, the guy who determined Mach speed for breaking the sound barrier. He had a lot of relativistic thoughts that counteracted Newton's. Do we teach Newton's views of absolute space, Mach's views of relative space, or Einstein's about space time? It gets confusing. So I absolutely agree when it comes to simplifying it to what the common consensus of the current day is, and including the history if it's necessary. But when there's something that's been replaced, just teach the replacement, like you're saying with Einstein's gravitational laws. But when it comes to orbital mechanics, still use Newton because that's the applicable one. So I actually really I agree with your perspective there. Ariel said, "You're a liar, Jed. We all know the solar flares would miss us because Earth is flat and we are like a quarter." Yeah, we make a much smaller target if we're flat. So yeah, it's even more statistically unlikely that a solar flare would hit us. It, I don't know if you guys know, flat earthers don't even really believe in solar flares. I don't know what their explanation of the northern lights are, but they're wild people, and I just feel bad for them most of the time. Hi, Sam, and they said that it would be too complicated to change the curriculum, which is such crap. Yeah, absolutely. Teach them, sure, but don't make it the basis. Yeah, if someone wants to dive into how these concepts have evolved, absolutely dive into it. But changing curriculum is such a poor excuse for accuracy, and you're just confusing these students if you tell them 5 different ways that something's been and end with the way it currently is. You don't know how their mind's going to work. Are they going to latch onto the second one, which is provably false? It's That's such a crap excuse. Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Rachel is a professor or a college teacher as well. Sam, so I think she can talk about how changing curriculum shouldn't be an excuse for not updating the what you're teaching. Like with new research being ignored because that would make you change the curriculum is just such a bullshit thing to say. Absolutely. Dr. Rachel, here's what Ariel said earlier. Adam sent me over here to make sure you write a sexy, seductive story with all the smut. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rachel. I don't know why Ariel's comment wasn't coming in. So then she set the scene earlier. Ariel set the scene earlier with the grass moving across the open plains. We'll get there. If people want to make Ariel's story true, Super Chats and we'll make it absolutely happen. Dr. Rachel, you got to send money to craft the story so Jed can afford a ticket to space. That's what we're building up to. Is the $1 million ticket or whatever insane thing. It's more than $1 million. It's like $100 million or something to get a ticket onto the first moon hotel that they're working on right now. So yeah, that's what this is, chap. Just help me pay for my ticket to the moon. Yes. Ariel, Jed, Adam needs money to play Love on the Farm. Animals turn to furry girls. Game on the Switch. I'm not sending him money for that because I'm going to have to talk to him about that. Jesus, Ariel? No. No. Send me money to go to space. Don't send him money to play furry porn. All right. So, yeah, I have 3 more topics that I have planned before the chat choose your own adventure. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, though. One's going to be immensely short. Another one is just reacting to a cringe article. And then the last one is reviewing Iron Lung, which I got a chance to watch last night with my wife. And I definitely want to talk about that. It's a very interesting movie that I'm excited to review. So that one I definitely want to keep. But if you guys aren't interested in a cringe Doctor Who article or a brief, it'll be so brief about the pancreatic cancer situation going on in Spain, we can skip one of those. Ariel saying, yeah, the furry porn. Sam saying, there's a thought I have. The cast of The Big Bang Theory were doing a game show and they were answering complex formulas. They asked the fucking quadrant equation as a complex formula. I don't know much about the math, unfortunately, Sam. That's why I'm not very good at math. I don't know the formulas, the actual numbers of physics. That is one area that I will freely admit that I am not good at, so I don't know the quadratic equation. But it would be really funny to see the cast of Big Bang Theory put up against real physics questions. It would be interesting just to see how good they were at it. You know, Sam, about the new Big Bang Theory spinoffs that's going to happen? Obviously, they have Young Sheldon and the sequel to Young Sheldon about Sheldon's older brother. But do you know about Stewart Fails to Save the Universe? Do you know about that, Sam? If you don't know about it, I'll explain it in a minute, but I don't want to spoil it until you're ready, because it isn't out yet, but the concept, wow. I think Chuck Lorre's developing it just like he did all the other shows. What was he smoking when he came up with this idea? Who wants a Stewart show? Rachel says, Jed, if you go to space, you will do a live stream about it first. Yes, I will live. If I get a ticket to the Moon Hotel, I will live stream every freaking second of it. I will brag about that shit. I will make a 3-hour live stream of me just bouncing up and down like, hee, it's low gravity. Hee. I will absolutely do that, Rachel. You won't be able to stop me from doing that. Ariel, Jed, would you have enjoyed the 2016 Ghostbusters if the cast was basically Big Bang Theory? No, that movie is abysmal. And the extended edition, some people told me it was better. I ended up watching it at one point. It is so much worse. There's a 20-minute dance routine with Chris Hemsworth puppeting first responders. That movie is garbage, regardless of who the cast is. The plot is irredeemable. So no, changing the cast wouldn't fix it for me. I say I'm pretty basic. We learn it in mid school. I was just showing how far away they are from science or the pursuit of it. Yeah, I never actually learned the quadratic equation either, to be fair, but it would be funny to see where their levels are at. Isn't the quadratic equation just basic algebra, Rachel? It probably is. I don't know if I've talked about it to you guys, if you guys have heard me talk about it on other streams, but I was actually homeschooled, and my parents were of the philosophy of as soon as I hit 10 years old, I was in charge of my own curriculum. So I'm very strong in areas that I'm passionate about, and I self-taught myself during that era. But in areas that I wasn't passionate about, like math, I do struggle in ways that a normal adult shouldn't. I'm able to function in society. I know more than enough math to, do my daily life, but I've never taken a trigonometry class, calculus, even geometry. I know basic geometry, but I've never taken a geometry class. So if it is basic algebra, I missed that, unfortunately. Or maybe I got it and I just don't remember, which is absolutely possible. What the fuck, Stuart? So yeah, you don't know Sam? So yeah, Stuart fails to save the universe. I'm going to tell you what this show is about. So it is a sequel to The Big Bang Theory, the first time since Big Bang Theory that we're going to really progress the timeline instead of being a prequel. And it's about Stuart. The plot is Stuart goes to visit Leonard and Sheldon at the university. They're not there. He accidentally messes with one of the devices that they're working on, and it breaks the multiverse. Stuart then goes on a multiverse hopping journey to try to put the universe back together. There's no confirmation on who of the original cast is returning besides Stuart, and I believe Kripke has been confirmed to return, but I don't know if anybody else is confirmed. That just sounds insane. A multiversal journey about how Stuart broke the universe, the multiverse, and is trying to put it back together. That's absolutely ridiculous. Jed, what's 3 plus 3? 21. I can do arithmetic. I've got arithmetic down. Sam, whoa, they thought middle school algebra was complex physics. That is disappointing if it's algebra and they're calling it complex physics. That's absolutely disappointing. But all right, I'm gonna let Sam stew with that a little bit. Just marinate in Stuart fails to save the universe for a minute. And while we do, I think I'm gonna cut over to that cringe article about Doctor Who right after a word from our sponsor, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, my notes were thick, blocked-out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag-and-drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000-word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy-to-understand, trackable project, complete with a series bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world-building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. As many of you know, I am a die-hard Doctor Who fan. I've watched all of the classic series and New Who many, many times. Of course, ending with Peter Capaldi. That's where I personally end things with Twice Upon a Time, but I've had to suffer through most of the Jodie Whittaker era, with the exception of her final season, and all of the Ncuti Gatwa era. So I am unfortunately educated on the entire breadth of Doctor Who. I've even reviewed a lot of it on this channel, including The War Between the Land and the Sea, the spinoff that just came out last month. But I have been incredibly critical of this recent era on Disney Plus with Ncuti Gatwa and Russell T Davies returning from the 2005 revival where he brought Doctor Who back from the wilderness years. But in all of that criticism I've had of the recent years, I've never once said the problem was too much or too little lore. But according to Bleeding Cool, all the problems with modern Doctor Who aren't the poor writing, aren't the desecrations of classic characters, aren't the politically driven storytelling. It's the fact they included classic canon, and that's stupid. Of course, that's the reason it failed, because of the heritage of the show and fans like myself who love what came before getting what we want, which is absolutely insane. We'll get into it. But yeah, they somehow think the fact that there was classic lore included meant that we got what we want, but we were still mad about it, and that's why the show is bad. So Bleeding Cool, definitely the bastion of journalistic integrity, says, can Doctor Who defeat the curse of the cranky, canon obsessed fan? To start off with, there's not many die-hard canon obsessed fans like myself. A lot of Doctor Who fans are absolutely casual, especially with the New Who era, and they're not expecting massive deep dives into the canon and everything like that. They expect things to be fairly consistent, which is an important thing to ask, but they're not asking for the toy maker to come back. They're not asking for all these deep cuts. So I get it from a certain extent. The deep cuts are too much, but there's so much more wrong with this show than that. They're finding one minute problem with the modern era and making it an entire issue. And with good writing, the biggest issue with the current era, these inclusions of deep lore don't matter as much. They're not as devastating. Russell T Davies actually used to be very good at this back when he first revived the show in 2005, including aspects of old lore with enough information that new fans could watch it and not be alienated. He reintroduced the Master in his third season, making everyone understand his connection to the Doctor, their backstory, his personality, and everything like that, with more than enough information to understand the plot, get invested in the characters, and love the story. He didn't need to dive into, there was this master who did this and this and this. There was this master who did this and this and this with the Seal of Rassilon. There was this one that fell into the Eye of Harmony and everything like that. There is a balance that can be had, but it lives and dies with bad writing. So what they're doing here is they're seeing a symptom of bad writing and blaming it for the whole infection. It's just a symptom, not the infection as a whole. They go on to say, the Disney Plus era was another example of Doctor Who becoming indigestible mix of 60 plus years of lore and canon, making the show feel old. That's absolutely not a criticism that Disney Plus's Doctor Who faced. We weren't calling it old. We were calling it too new, in fact. It was incredibly modern, mired in modern day political ideations, a lot of opinions, beliefs, and modern day storytelling. It looked like it was designed for what Hollywood thinks Gen Z is and what Gen Z wants, which they're, of course, wrong about. So they're making up that the problem was that it felt old. That's absolutely the opposite of what the real criticism has been. The last two seasons of Doctor Who and Disney Plus are now considered by many as a kind of creative failure. We can at least agree there, even though these people would absolutely not have been saying that when those seasons were airing, even though it was perfectly fun to watch at the time. Of course, they're acting like it's totally fine to have loved it when it came out. We did it. Whatever. Everyone with a form is still doing an autopsy of what went wrong. That is absolutely not true. Most people have forgotten about the show. No one talks about the Disney Plus era. Doctor Who as a whole is practically dead, killed in its sleep by Russell T Davies and a mire of apathy that he drowned it in. So no one's still dissecting it like Bleeding Cool has to say. And this is another prime example of when something happens, people like myself, like Adam, we have our takes on things. We're called crazy, moronic, ists and phobes and everything like that. And then a couple years later, people like Breeding Cool who loved it when it came out are like, yeah, it was bad, wasn't it? It was really bad. Our opinions vindicated. It always feels like the broader world is a few years behind critical normies, critical people from outside of the entertainment and access media. They're always a few years behind. We're always proven right. And they're finally getting on board with the fact that modern Doctor Who is absolutely crap. Yet they're still misdiagnosing it to cover their asses for saying it was great when it came out. Many expected Russell T Davies to do the same thing for the Disney Plus era that he did in 2005, which he mostly did. Yeah, they're really doing damage control for themselves here, but also made the common fan mistake of using too much lore from the show that casual viewers didn't know about and found impenetrable. Part of that is true. Again, it's a symptom of the bad writing that made them impenetrable. But bringing back Sutek from one arc in the Tom Baker era, bringing back Omega from 2 or 3 arcs of the classic era. These are obscure characters that most fans, unless you're a die hard like myself, haven't even heard of. Now with the Ronnie, that's a little bit more mainstream. People definitely know the Ronnie more so than Sutek. And of course, he bastardized them. So if this opinion is true that, hey, you're bringing in the old canon for the old fans, that's stupid. Well, the old fans hated those things far more than the new fans. The old fans saw what he did to Sutek, taking him from this imposing godlike figure trapped in a different version of reality or whatnot to a weird dog monster that was just hanging on the back of the TARDIS and then got road hauled in the time vortex. We despised seeing that. We absolutely despise seeing that. So this is a misdiagnosis in every way, shape, or form to shift the blame from their ideology. Getting stuck on past impenetrable lore seems to be an undoing of all long-running franchise series. This has happened to Star Trek, Star Wars, and of course Doctor Who. Yes, the big problem with Star Wars is that they like their old stuff too much, and they include too much of their old stuff. It's not like the sequel trilogy dismantled everything that came before and tried to make a new future that everyone rejected. It's not like Star Trek made fun of everything that existed prior and then jumped 1,000 years into the future to try to avoid the canon, or in the instance of the JJ movies, split off a timeline so that they don't have to be mired in what came before. Whoever wrote this for Bleeding Cool doesn't understand any of these franchises. It wasn't lore, it wasn't canon obsession that destroyed these. It was lip service to canon, desecration of canon, and at the root of all of it, bad writing from people who didn't love these franchises. It's always the same argument from us. It's always a consistent statement from us. The problem is bad writers who don't care. That is always the root of these problems. But people like Bleeding Cool are always trying to come up with justifications for why these writers are actually great, why these stories are actually good, or why it's the fans' fault. This is absolutely a fan attack, saying it's the fans' fault for this happening. Russell T Davies was trying to satisfy the fans who were by nature unsatisfiable. It's never their fault. It's disgusting that these articles are still coming out. This weird and ungainly injection of undigested past deep lore persisted through the next 2 seasons, the Shudigatwa seasons. It was entirely digested, and that was the problem. He swallowed up Sutek and spat out whatever the fuck this is. That's not undigested. That's far too much digestion. And then that's what he did to Omega at the end of season 2, made the demon baby. The series has fallen into the trap of throwing in lore that feels unwieldy and undigestible for newcomers, making the show feel inaccessible. Yeah, starting the show over again at season 1, dismissing all canon and plot progression, character development, and everything like that with a bi-regenerated Doctor who doesn't have the baggage of the old, definitely makes it inaccessible. That's the problem. Erasing everything in the past, then cherry-picking and warping moments of the past. That's definitely the problem. That's absolutely the problem. It has reached its decadent phase where it feels old and top-heavy, weighed down by 60 years of lore and continuity that turn off new viewers. When the series returns, it needs to feel like a new show where everything is fresh instead of a slog full of old references. There are ways to balance it. Like 2005's Revival, I think, is a great example of how to balance the old while enticing the new. This is a problem. To be fair, Bleeding Cool is identifying a problem, but they're saying it's the entire problem. It's a symptom of the problem, and it's it's I can't believe we're still having these discussions after so many years of bad Doctor Who. Universally, Doctor Who can be agreed upon that it ended in 2018. Some people go a little bit earlier to the 50th anniversary, for example, but everyone agrees, who's a diehard fan like myself, 2018 is absolutely the latest that Doctor Who existed. That was 8 years ago, and we're still having the same tired old discussions. At least they're admitting that there's a problem. That is progress, but they're still blaming fans. They're still blaming people like me for the problems instead of taking some accountability for Bleeding Cool liking bad shit or letting these studios, these creators, take accountability for making bad shit. All right, that's my diatribe down. I knew that would probably be a little bit short, but impassioned. I can't help it, I'm afraid. Over on the kick side, hail Wiley Dave. Of course, you jumped in with the Doctor Who segment. Great place to have you come in, my friend. You watched Tom Baker's second season, looked good, didn't notice the AI crap. That's great. I'm glad that I think it's the Blu-ray that you're looking at, didn't get AI destroyed or anything like that. That's great to hear. They gave the new Doctor a Barbie doll. I don't remember that. What are you talking about? I'm not sure what you're talking about, Wiley Day. But over on the YouTube side, let me see. ISAM says, yeah, I took those classes. You'll be happier if you didn't learn trig. Yeah, trig just seems overly complex and not something that's needed. ISAM, that show sounds like trash. Doctor Who was great for so many years. I love classic Who. It started in 1963. My favorite is on this will bother some people out there. My favorite is New Who though. I love the David Tennant, Matt Smith, Christopher Eccleston era so much, and there's greatness in the Peter Capaldi era, even though it starts to have problems even then. But once Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker took over the franchise in 2018, and then later again Russell T Davies and Ncuti Gatwa, they desecrated it. They destroyed everything that it is, and it's not even limping along. It's just gaseous, and we smell the corpse every now and then. But I Sam, if you ever want to watch good Doctor Who, I can make recommendations for you. I absolutely love it, and will still watch Doctor Who for the rest of my life. Hopefully, I absolutely love classic Doctor Who and the early stages of New Who. Dr. Rachel, this article is so tone deaf. Modern Doctor Who is so bad because they didn't listen to the fans. Yes, it's not that they listened to the cranky, fan obsessed fans and made something bad. It's the fact that they didn't listen to us cranky, canon obsessed fans and prioritized the message over story, characters, and lore. Absolutely. Can they really blame fans who didn't even watch? They were rightly cursed with lack of viewership. Yeah, Dash, the viewership for the Ncuti Gatwa and Jodie Whittaker eras have been abysmal. 60-year lows. Classic Who, when there were less people in the UK and it wasn't known outside the UK really, got better viewership than most of the modern stuff for a worldwide product where England's and Britain's population has grown immensely since the 60s. It's embarrassing. So, yeah, you can't blame the people who didn't watch for destroying the show. Wiley Dave said he, her, and his companion have a Barbie doll release. Really? Here's, I didn't know there was gonna be a Barbie release. I'm gonna have to look that up. Wiley Dave, holy hell! Legata said, "Whose morons are clueless and are talking out of their asses?" Yeah, so fucking lootly. Rachel says, "It's such a huge problem in our culture. Not take accountability for mistakes. If you make a show that sucks and fans all point that out, it sucks, then maybe the problem is you, not the fans. There's so much ego in Hollywood that's making it impossible to have a nuanced discussion, and they'll never take accountability, but it is important that they do." Why the fuck is Lupita playing Helen? So, Sam, we talked about this yesterday on Roundtable. The reports that Lupita is playing Helen of Troy are entirely made up at this point. They're not even a rumor. It's just someone trying to rage bait. Now, disclaimer, it could absolutely still end up being true, but the report that everyone's talking about on Twitter, for example, is someone making it up. And that set photo you're talking about, ISAM, is actually an AI edited photo from 12 Years a Slave. Unless there's something that's come out in the last hour since I did the stream, ISAM, it is rage baiters making stuff up to make people angry. If she does end up being Helen of Troy, the reaction is absolutely warranted, and I will be screaming from the rooftops, calling out Christopher Nolan as well. But right now, there aren't any confirmed reports, and that photo, the set photo of her, it has been disproven. So yeah, it's just rage baiters. I don't know exactly who started it. I know who the first person in this sphere on Twitter to really talk about it, but I don't know if it started with her or not. But that story, that picture that people are acting like is from a verified news source is entirely fabricated. Entirely fabricated. And that set photo is, like I said, 12 Years a Slave with a new background added in with AI. It's not true at this point. It might be, but people are talking about it out of their asses. These people, these rage baiters. And that's what I hate. Rage baiters are destroying all nuanced conversation. When the story actually comes out, and if it's true, let's have a good discussion about how fucking terrible that casting is of Lupita. But until then, there's not a whole lot to talk about beyond speculation. I hope she's Calypso. If she has to be in the movie, I hope Lupita plays Calypso. That's the best case scenario. Still not good, but best case scenario. And but yeah, no mainstream articles are talking about it. There's been no reports, no quotes from Nolan, no public press releases from, I believe Universal is the studio behind this film, The Odyssey. But yeah, it's not real at this stage. It could absolutely be real though. And yeah, a lot of people were taken in because people on Twitter are saying it confidently and pretending like it's true. So it's a lot of malicious people trying to take advantage of people who are just scrolling. There's nothing wrong with just scrolling, seeing a story, and believing it. I do it all the time. So, but yeah, these people they're trying to take advantage of rage, and I honestly think it's absolutely disgusting. Dr. Rachel said AI is tough to distinguish, absolutely, but that's why it is so important to find the sources first before reacting. Yeah, the rage baiters are trying to win. Calypso was good in the Pirates movies. Yeah, I Sam. Calypso was very good in those pirate movies. Those movies are wild, but I really like the pirate movies. Even Dead Men Tell No Tales. I think Stranger Tides is my least favorite. I have a lot of problems with that one. But yeah, Calypso, you have the room to play with divine figures in Greek mythology. They were, gods of the entire world, and they had connections to Africa. So with some of them, you can form arguments. Calypso, the daughter of a Titan who wasn't active ruling over Greece, so he wouldn't necessarily look Greek. So you could have the argument for Atlas's daughter Calypso looking darker. You have the basis for an argument. You have no basis for an argument with Helen, but with Calypso you do. For Dionysus, a lot of people don't know Dionysus was actually raised as a mortal in modern day Ethiopia, so making Dionysus a little bit darker, you have a mythological backing for something like that. But for the human characters, especially the historical characters, like Helen of Troy, because not everybody knows this, Troy was a real place, so there is real history involved in it. It's history through the lens of religion, because the Homerific tales were religion initially. It's not mythology, isn't just fantasy from its era. It is religion from its era. So it's a historical, well, these are historical characters for the most part with the lens of the gods interacting with their lives. So there's historical accuracy still an important consideration when it comes to this film. Dr. Rachel, when I first heard about her being cast, I think most people assumed that she was going to play Agamemnon's wife, right? That's been the leak, the rumor for months now, and that still might be true. But Calypso would be a great choice too. Still, I don't want her to be in this movie. She shouldn't be in this movie, but Calypso is best case scenario. And even Agamemnon's wife, she's such a minor role that it could work, and you could just say, yeah, he she immigrated here. He married the foreign beauty or something like that. You could have an argument for such a minor character like that. So that would be a decent situation as well. It's not Helen. Just not Helen. She's the face that launched 1,000 ships. Her beauty is such that it started the Trojan War, and she was Spartan. And the Spartans are incredibly, they're not isolationists necessarily, but they're self-contained to a strong degree. So of all the city states, Spartans should look like Greeks nearly more than anybody else. So, yeah, I wish that this cast was full of Greek actors. I would actually prefer no-name actors who are actually Greek who could do the job very well. That's my best case scenario. But I know it's too much to ask to hope for that to happen. So having actors from Europe who could play the role who look close enough, I think is absolutely fine. A lot of people are trying to call out Diane Keeger or whatever her name is from Troy being cast as Helen of Troy. I think that's ridiculous as well, calling her out for that, because if if we were to have another Mulan movie, another live action Mulan movie, would many people care if she came from, I don't know, Mongolia versus China or Korea versus China? You're getting close enough that the minor differences between races, nationality wise, don't matter. So getting Eastern European is enough. Most Italians could play Greeks. So the effort to be as accurate as you can while still casting a name is all that we want. And they're not willing to make that compromise. There's so much, I'll say it, diversity in this movie that doesn't make sense. You could make it make sense with the gods. You could have arguments. You could have the Troy is believed to have been in Turkey. Have some more Middle Eastern people play the Trojans. You have an argument for that. But Nolan isn't going into the effort to justify these decisions that he's making because he doesn't care. As much as I love Nolan, I think he should be exclusively reserved to making his own original works because he's repeatedly proven he doesn't respect other people's works. He's going to change them in whatever way he needs to make the story he wants. And that comes at the expense of the original source material and alienates fans. So he should keep making Inceptions, Interstellar, stuff like that, which I love. But when he dips into history, dips into adaptations, there are a lot of Batman fans who still hate his Batman movies because they're not very Batman-y. I love those movies and they're very, very well written. But there are major changes to the lore that make it not really Batman films as well as they could be. So I think that's the situation we're in, is he had a movie he wanted to tell with the veneer of the Odyssey, and he was going to do whatever he needed to do to get his story. Nolan needs to do original work. There's not many people who I would say that. I think Zack Snyder should never do original work ever again. Have a good writer, have a good adaptation, and he can do a good job, like with Watchmen and 300. Not so much with the DCU, but in general, when he makes his own stuff, it's so much worse. So Nolan is the exception, but yeah, he should not be adapting anyone else's work at all. Let me see. Isam says, by the way, I have a 1900-year-old copy of the Iliad. Oh my god. I have a 10-year-old copy of the Odyssey. Fuck. I'm a big fan of classic leather-bound books and old books. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but I have some leather-bound books right there, a little bit below, and a stack of them out in my my sitting room. I love classic leather-bound. If they weren't so damn expensive, I'd have a real collection of them at this point, rather than mostly gifts over the years. But copy of the Iliad that old, that's incredible, man. I am I'm very jealous that you have something like that. That's incredible. Wiley Dave over on the kick side found the Barbie. Oh god. I had to see this, so now you guys do too. It's true. There's a fucking Shootigatwa Barbie doll. I mean, he was in the Barbie movie, so I can see why they would do that, but damn. This is kind of, it doesn't look like him at all. Oh. I'm sure this thing has more genitalia than he does in real life. Oh. Ugh. That's worse. That's worse. Ugh. I'm getting this off my screen now. Damn, Legatus. Or, Wiley Dave. Dash says the Greek gods were born from the Titans, and if you remember the Titans, some of them were black. Hey, great argument. Yeah, absolutely. We actually just watched the movie Dash. I don't know if you're referring to it because of that, but we're driving this last Saturday, Adam and I reacted or reviewed Remember the Titans. I love that movie growing up. So yeah, we talked about it. Didn't realize it was going to be Black History Month the next day, but that yeah, it's very relevant, that movie. It's always relevant. Remember the Titans. Gotta remember the Titans. Sam says the pages have finger snubs on them that are over 1,000 years old. Oh my hell. You're getting me aroused, Sam. I'm gonna have to move on. Just that sounds incredible, man. I would love to have something like that someday. I would not want to touch it. It would go in a sealed box of some kind to keep it preserved. But damn, that's really really cool. So with that, let's go to the last real topic before the review and writer flight. I just want to briefly highlight this because people are talking about this story so very wrong, in my opinion, and it's such an important story to the future of modern medicine. You all have probably seen this scrolling through Twitter, but there are Spanish scientists who have successfully cured pancreatic cancer in rats using a 3-stage pharmaceutical treatment. This is incredible. All right, we're getting to the point where we can legitimately address cancer. We can solve it in ways that aren't chemotherapy and immensely devastating to the people who have cancer. So this story should be shouted from the rooftops. Everyone should be celebrating this. And of course, it's before human trials. It hasn't been proven to work on humans, but this is an immensely important first step. But instead of talking about how amazing this is and following the career of this gentleman here and this project, everything like that, people are focused solely on his birthmark. And yes, it is an intense birthmark. It does draw the eye, but so many of the comments that I've seen, so many of the tweets I've seen have focused solely on his face, forgetting the impressive work that he's doing. We're in a world where the superficial matters more than anything else, but the substance here could literally save lives. I'm not so optimistic to say that it's guaranteed that his research will pan out, that it'll work in humans, that he'll solve pancreatic cancer worldwide. But we need to support people doing this research who are making progress in it so that they can at least lay the foundation for someone else to come along and make those final steps, make those final leaps to solving the cancer problem. But when people are so focused on his face that they can't talk about the story, can't talk about the progress, it really makes me ashamed of the human species. I can't tell you how disgusted I am with a lot of this. And what makes it so much worse is he's having trouble getting funding. He's asking for 30 million euros, it looks like, to start his human trials. And he hasn't been able to do that. That's why he's gone so public with all of this. The Spanish government isn't funding him. International grants aren't funding him. And of course, there's the argument of, oh, pharmaceutical companies are trying to kibosh the cancer cure so that they can keep getting money coming in from stuff like that. And sure, that could possibly be part of it. I don't know the details of that conspiracy, but it could absolutely be true. At the same time, there's got to be some people who care about this and help fund this. I really believe if he went GoFundMe, there's enough good people out there who would help him fund his research. But still, the story is mostly about his face, and I despise that. Let this man get his money. Let him try. There's so many things getting money these days that shouldn't. There's so many projects that go nowhere. So many diversity studies or social studies or government funded television programs that are absolute garbage getting money when he's begging for $30 million in medical science. That's not a whole lot. Private companies could fuel this, patent the cure, and make billions. Why isn't there some greedy pharmaceutical company taking advantage of this opportunity to go into the stratosphere? I'm ashamed of this. And just like Judas is saying in the chat, pancreatic cancer is devastating. It's horrible. And we're in the early stages of ending that horrible situation, just like when we ended polio and everything like that and made the measles and the mumps less devastating, less relevant. Why can't we fund this? Why is there such a dismissal of this project? Either a dismissal from people laughing at his face or dismissal from the people with the money not willing to invest. That's all I wanted to talk about it, is just say throw in my 2 cents and say this is really impressive. This is really important, and we can't let the value of this story be eroded by the fact that he has a birthmark on his face. If he went public with a GoFundMe, I would donate. I wouldn't be able to donate a ton right now, especially since I lost my job a couple months ago, but I would try to help, and I think so many other people would as well. It, like this first comment says below, it's an absolute disgrace that he can't secure enough funding. The Spanish government isn't helping him. Private investors aren't helping him. That's why he's doing this public campaign. And I think it might have been a publicity stunt for him to be the front man of it instead of having somebody else do it. So at least people would be talking about his birthmark. Maybe it was the strategy. I don't know if it's working though, because people are getting distracted from the value of this. And it makes me ashamed of humanity. It makes me disappointed for our survival. I talk about the Great Filter occasionally, this idea that evolutionarily there's something that prevents sentient species from becoming galaxy spanning, from being spread out across the stars. It explains the Fermi paradox for why we haven't seen aliens. And we don't know if the Great Filter is real. We don't know if we've already passed the Great Filter or if we're about to. This makes me 100% believe that the Great Filter is our own stupidity. That's what we're facing right here. Cancer cures are being dismissed. It's shameful. Absolutely, absolutely shameful. Welcome in, Judas. I saw you coming during that. That's great to have you here. Rachel says, I want to follow that story and see the next step since the rat trials were so successful. They were very successful, and it's just a 3-stage pharmaceutical treatment. It's nothing insane. And there's so many pieces of research like this that aren't getting the public awareness they should. Like, a lot of people know if you get a little bit older, your joints start to have issues and your knees start to fail, with the cartilage breaking down and whatnot. There's a new treatment that's been proven to increase the cartilage by attacking the enzyme that's decreasing, the protein that's damaging the manufacturing of cartilage in your body as you get older. And it's helping, but no one's talking about that. So a lot of these medical science uh, events, these big leaps forward in medical science aren't getting talked about. Just like the rest of science, the world doesn't care about science like we were talking about earlier. That's why I think what I'm doing is so important. I want it to be so important because yes, I'm going to find people like Sam who are passionate about literature, like he's saying with the Iliad and with science. But I also hope to show other people who aren't as invested as myself into the scientific fields what's actually happening, so that they can be educated on it and be invested in it. So people talk about this so that we can help get funding when it applies. If I ever become a big channel, I intend on doing scientific research charity fundraisers whenever I can. I'll absolutely do that. I need to be able to take care of myself, of course, first on this channel, but that's something I would want to do because I want science to advance. I want humanity to advance and progress in that sense, but it's not happening because the general public doesn't care. And there's not money to be made in it, even though it absolutely should. So, yeah, the Great Filter, we might deserve it if we keep behaving like this. The ISAM says the pharmaceutical companies make a lot from it, and a pharmaceutical company, like I said, could come in and make so much from this pancreatic cure. So, I things evolve, but no one's willing to evolve. That's the thing. There's always something new that you can make money from, and there's things that will fall into obscurity, like steam engines. You could have billionaires in steam engine or equivalent of billionaires from 200 years ago. Steam engines went the way of the dinosaur, and now we're looking at electric cars and still using gas powered vehicles and whatnot and everything like that. But things have to move forward. So few people are willing to take that step, to take that risk, because it is a risk to a certain extent. But with something like this, it's not that big of a risk, and yet people are still unwilling to take it. It's it's shameful. I say the money part might be true. There are some of the biggest lobbyist groups on the planet. Yes, the pharmaceutical companies being involved is the most logical explanation that I can see. I still don't see why there isn't someone outside of that, someone who's like, I can see it affecting government grants. I can absolutely see pharmaceutical companies affecting government grants, but there's not a pharmaceutical company that isn't in this field that won't lose money from getting rid of chemo or whatnot and can take advantage of the situation. It's just so weird that there aren't any outliers even trying, and it's very disappointing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The money part with pharmaceutical companies is the most likely cause for this shameful thing that he has to. It's shameful that he has to beg for money like this on the global stage. It's incredibly shameful. Dash says, I don't know, Dash. Is that how you want to be referred to? It's just an underscore. So, however you'd like to be. I've just been calling you Dash, but if you want me to call you underscore or whatever it is, absolutely let me know with your at symbol there or your at name. He should start a health clinic in Minnesota. The money will roll in. That's one way to get funding for it. Dr. Rachel, the medical world is insanely political. I think that birthmark is just an excuse, honestly. Yeah, it's probably being used as an excuse, which is shameful. Sam, he's getting shot. I would definitely worry about his safety. He needs to invest in some top-notch security at this point because the pharmaceutical companies, they're not going to go down without a fight. Judas, I work in medicine, and there's some huge egos in medical research and jealousy. I have heard that there's a little bit of a problem with that. The Spanish government saying that this man here, the one with the birthmark, is to blame for the funding issue because he's hard to work with. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, there are a lot of egos involved, and they're blaming his ego for the situation, which I I don't see as being a big enough factor. Most of the biggest geniuses in history have been massive egotists, but they get the work done. If they get the work done, they've earned their right to an ego, in my opinion. Legatus, how can science, especially medical science, advance so many? I can't explain what a woman is. Yeah, if you can't explain what a woman is, how do you progress such a basic thing? Is it like so many people have digressed to where it is irreversible? I do feel like we're in a bit of a regressive state where our society is regressing, and it's so disappointing to see. Sam, they could have given the budget for Snow White. Yeah, with the budget of Snow White, he could have funded decades worth of research because yeah, the budget of Snow White was around 350 before marketing, I believe. So yeah, that's over 10 times what he's asking. What type of fucking world do we live in? Movies make more or cost more than curing fucking cancer and going to the moon. Let's see, what is Artemis's budget? I'm gonna look up Artemis program budget. The NASA Artemis program aiming to get people to the moon is projected to cost $93 billion. So, they haven't done 26 to 2029 and forward, but at this point, less than a sorry, that's a billion, not a million. Okay, so that's a shitload. Okay, I was about to have a panic attack or freak out, but no, 93 billion. That's fucking insane. Okay, that is really fucking insane. Holy hell! All right, it would have been funny if Snow White cost more than the Artemis program. That's not true, thankfully. Dash is fine. Great, Dash. Dr. Rachel, we can get $1 billion for Rings of Power, but not this research. Yeah, and they just came out and admitted that Rings of Power seasons 1 and 2 cost $1 billion, just like we said they did. So, yeah, another instance of us saying something called crazy, called isinphobes, and then later on being proved right. But yeah, you can get $1 billion for that, but you can't get 30 million euros for cancer research. Dr. Rachel, just cancel Rings of Power season 3 and give that money towards something good. Yeah, Amazon, do something good with your money instead of making dystopian factories and terrible TV shows. Looks like they're going to do that with God of War. I'm not optimistic for the God of War TV show at all. I know some people are starting to just because of the color of the skin of the cast, but there are major concerns outside of that most people are pressing, I'm afraid. All right, I'm going to take a quick drink of water. I'm going to mute myself for that because you guys don't need to hear me slobbering all over my water bottle. And then we'll get into the Iron Lung review. Last night, I had the great pleasure of going out to the theaters with my wife to watch the Iron Lung movie from Markiplier. As a disclaimer, I'm not a fan of Markiplier. I don't particularly dislike him or anything like that. I've just never really watched his content and had no bias going into this movie to support him, to not support him, or anything like that. I just heard about an independent movie that cost $3 million that was self-funded by a passionate fan, a passionate person who made something that came out in theaters that was being well received. So that alone made me want to go out and watch Iron Lung. I didn't know a whole lot about it before going in to see it. I just knew that there was a submersible of some kind at the heart of it. I really didn't know the premise. For those of you who don't know, Iron Lung is set in a distant future where humanity's colonized a lot of the galaxy, but some event has happened. They call it the Quiet Rapture. Stars are starting to go out. There's some extinction level event facing humanity, and there's really only a few beacons of light left in the universe, one of which is a moon covered in an ocean of blood. The main character, played by Markiplier himself, is a convict who is trading his freedom for this dangerous mission of going in a submersible down into this ocean of blood and conducting research. That's the basic premise of the movie, not diving into spoilers yet, but it's a fascinating concept just from the initial setup there. And the film is surprisingly really good. Again, this is a first time writer, first time director, real first time actor in a role like this, and yet they pulled off something that is entirely watchable. I recommend Iron Lung to anybody out there who's and even a little bit curious with the premise that I put out there. Yes, there are issues. There's absolutely issues. But if this is your starting place for your first theatrical release, Markiplier has a career ahead of him as a filmmaker, as an actor, an incredible career ahead of him. Because I was invested in the story, I was invested in him as a character. It's basically a bottle episode as a movie, so the entire movie, with the exception of like two flashbacks a little bit and looking out a window, is all inside of this one room submersible craft. So it's Markiplier in a room, mostly talking to himself or talking to someone over a radio. It's very, very self-contained, and that's so hard to do without scene changes, without narrative inflection. It's hard to keep the audience invested. In his first try, I believe he pulled it off. I believe he made a movie that was entertaining, kept people invested, and it is a horror film, so there is a fear factor to it. There is a gross factor to it. It's an ocean of blood, so it gets very gross during certain segments of it. That's most of what I want to say. Is just that, yeah, for a first time independent film, it's a great, great fucking start. However, the issues, in my opinion, with the film can all be boiled down to the lore. Lore isn't explained in great enough detail. Like the Quiet Rapture, no idea what that is. There's some backstory with what crime he committed, how he committed it, and stuff like that, which is important to the plot, which isn't developed. And most importantly, the ending, which I won't spoiler at this point, because I want you guys to go and see it. The ending, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what's happening. I don't know the stakes, and that's the biggest problem. The lore, the world building is so weak with just terms thrown at you that this world, this humanity extinction level threat isn't understood. So the stakes aren't understood, and somehow what he does in the film will lead to humanity's survival. But I can't buy the stakes. I don't know what the enemy is. I don't know how what he's doing will fix the problem or anything like that. And that fundamentally breaks the movie. It is damaging to a huge degree that we don't get these types of answers. We don't even know why there's an ocean of blood. At one point, someone says, this ocean is us. Does that mean it's a moon full of human blood? It really doesn't make sense. So at the same time, as much as I'm praising it, there are substantial issues. It tried to go too overly complicated. The basic premise, a moon diver in a blood-like ocean trying to survive. You've got a great, great core concept there. You don't need this extenuating lore. But because they introduced it and didn't introduce it enough to make sense, it damages the movie. Just have an ex-convict who is going down in the submersible to do whatever this specific one colony on this moon needs you to do, and have practically the same movie, and you're totally fine. But with the Quiet Rapture, the religious elements with there's a cult called Eden, which is basically hey, everyone should accept that the universe is ending and just die as happily as you can, all that is introduced to such a superficial detail that it's distracting. It is so very distracting. That's why I have to give Iron Lung a 5 out of 10 in the end. Incredible start. Incredible acting. When I was going into it, I thought it would be kind of a decent film, but Markiplier's acting would be the worst part of it. Honestly, his acting was the best part of it. He really sold me, despite his lack of experience, that he was this ex convict in this horrible, horrible situation, descending into the depths of a blood ocean. I was blown away by how much range he was able to show, because a big part of the film is him losing his sanity, losing his grip on what's real, what's not real. There are some hallucinations that aren't really clarified if they're real or not, and everything like that. And he sells these ranges of emotions and performances as the psychology of this character of Simon degrades. He's absolutely the best part of the film, and I recommend it at this point, despite those issues that I said. And more importantly, I want to see what he makes next. Such a great starting point that his next film could be truly great if he takes the feedback from this film. And I'm going to be watching his career very closely now, and I hope more people check it out, because this is a movie that cost $3 million, that got $20 million its opening weekend. He made godless amounts of money. He was briefly on number one at the domestic box office, beating out things like Sam Raimi's horror film Send Help, Avatar: Fire and Ash, Zootopia. He was top of the box office for a little while there, and he's still near the top as of now. He he pulled off something incredible. Self-funded. He doesn't even have a distributor from Hollywood. This is as independent as it gets. And I want to support and highlight independent films. And I hope you do as well, because we need a growing independent sphere to replace Hollywood. And that's what we're getting with Iron Lung. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't know if anyone else has seen it or if anybody else is interested in seeing it after hearing my thoughts on it. I hope you guys check it out. I want to see this movie go farther. I hope in the end it makes a 100 million. I think that'll be a really, really good place for it. And I hope Mark decides to make more content. I'm interested in subscribing to his channel now, watching his streams and everything like that, because he very much impressed me as a first time writer, director, and star. He made a great project, and it makes me want to play the video game as well, because for those who don't know, it is an adaptation of a short horror game, and I don't know how accurate the movie was. It doesn't sound like there was a whole lot of story in the game, so accuracy becomes less of an issue. But I want to play the game. It got me interested in this world, in him as a creator, and I want to know what the fucking lore means. Like I said, there's so many gaps in the lore. They're interesting concepts that are suggested, but not enough for the story to make sense. So I'm interested to see what the actual answers are. I want to know what the real answers are. But reading chat, I Sam, has there been any casting news for that? Any casting news for God of War? Yes, there's a full cast for God of War. Basically, at this point, the only people that we're missing are Freya and Atreides. They're skipping all the Greek games, which is a major red flag to me, going straight to the Norse games. And another major red flag is they're casting everyone from Ragnarok, the second Norse game. So instead of just skipping 3, 5, if you count the PSP games, and going to the first Norse one, it seems like they're skipping the first Norse one as well, or coming up with a completely original story with just some of these characters involved. I'm very worried about God of War. I don't know if Ron D. Moore can pull it off. He's an incredible showrunner. He's from classic Hollywood when he knows how to make television, but he's not a gamer. He's not a fan of this franchise, and it feels like he's a hired gun at this point. So I don't believe it's going to be good. A lot of people are saying it's going to be amazing just because the cast is white, and yes, the cast is white, and that's a good first step for a Norse mythology story, but it's just the first step. There are still other red flags to account for, like people being cast far, far too early, people who are miscast, like Mandy Patinkin. Mandy Patinkin, most known as Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, is playing Odin. I think that's a massive miscast. There's the guy who played Zoltan in Witcher season 4 is playing Brock. Yes, it's nice to see more dwarf actors than Peter Dinklage getting roles in Hollywood, but he doesn't have the presence, the gravitas for Brock. So I see a lot of red flags with God of War. Hi, Sam. Dr. Rachel, I've been watching Markiplier since maybe 2014, and was really excited for Iron Lung. Liked it, but I'd recommend reading up on the lore before going in. Yes, yes, read up on the lore so you're not as confused as we were, and be aware that there's a lot of darkness, flashing light sequences. So be warned. Yeah, a lot of people have been getting a little nauseous watching the film, the horror aspect of it, and yeah, it's an ocean of blood. Apparently, he said that they used 80,000 gallons of blood for it, which is insane. Legatus, when I heard the term iron lung, I thought it was a historical documentary of polo epidemics in the late 1920s. I don't know the terminology. In the movie, it's just referencing the fact that he's, in a submersible that kind of looks like a lung. But yeah, there might be some etymology referencing something a little bit older like that. Dr. Rachel, I really like when movies leave it up to the audiences to determine how much is real or hallucination. Like movies like that, I want to rewatch it after I've read up on the lore. I think it goes a little bit too far in what's real or what's not, but I do typically like stuff like that, especially like the way Inception handles it, for example. I think Inception handles that, what is real and what's not, very, very well. This film, it feels a little like a shotgun approach. I I don't know what's real or not, and I think that damages it when you don't know what the point of anything is. But yes, absolutely recommend people checking out Iron Lung and seeing where Markiplier goes in the future. But that's all that we have for segments today. We're getting to the point for the chat choose your own adventure. Kind of see if there's any way to do AI music. People have been. I want to include music, and you guys mentioned last week AI music might be a good idea. I need to actually look into a plugin or something for the stream because it's probably really boring to hear me write when I have to take breaks from speaking to type out things and everything like that. So these segments, I think, would benefit immensely from some music. So I'm gonna see if I can pull up something here real quick. If and the big thing is copyright as well, avoiding copyright. But all right, let me see if there are any copyright free AI copyright. All right, I'm gonna try this playlist here, chat. It's AI copyright free music. It's not meant to be anything extraordinary, but I hope I don't get hit for it. All right, let's switch over to the chat choose your own adventure segment of the stream, where you, the chat, in combination with dice rolls, help me craft wild, wild short stories together. All right, let me just add in the Spotify soundtrack. All right, let me know how the volume for all that is, chat. Perfect. All right. So yeah, we're in the chat choose your own adventure segment where your super chats craft this story. So highest super chat starting at $1 will be able to override any dice rolls for this segment as we pick the genre, lead character, setting, theme, style, and wild card items. So anything that you guys don't like that I roll here, override it and make me come up with or write whatever you want me to do. And like I said, if we reach $100 in donations today, we'll schedule the Story Forge stream and actually write out this short story. And my beautiful wife, Dr. Rachel, will draw some original artwork for it as well. So it should be a lot of fun. Dr. Rachel says, when you get a handle on the music, you should start compiling a list of different genres and play a genre that fits the theme of the story you write, like sci-fi music for a sci-fi story. That's interesting. That'll take a lot more work. But yeah, that's definitely something I should consider in the end. But yeah, let me know, everyone, how the music is working for all of you as we dive into it. First, we're going to pick the genre. Our options are science fiction, fantasy, mystery thriller, romance, parody, and chat choice. With chat choice, any chat choice is just go straight to the chat, free space, no need to super chat or anything like that. I let you all decide, and a super chat can override what the chat chooses as well. parody, same idea. If it rolls on parody, you guys will be able to pick what type of parody it is for free, or override that with what the chat wants with the super chat. So, what are we gonna get today with this roll? We have a parody. This is the first time we've actually ever had a parody. So, chat, start thinking about it, or super chat if you have a strong opinion on something, what type of parody you would like me to do. This could be a parody of a known franchise. It could be of a known genre, anything like that. So if you like a Not Another Teen Movie is a parody of teen dramas of that era, I could do a parody of teen dramas, or I could do a parody of Star Wars. Whatever you guys want, we'll make something work for parody. Now, lead character, our options are bounty hunter, model, narcoleptic, oil rigger, pimp, and chat choice. Same thing here. Super chats override this. Chat choice is a free space. Let's see what the dice has for us. We have a 4. Got an oil rigger parody story. All right. At least we're doing things that are unusual. I always worry that I'm going to get something super straightforward and cliche, like a romance story about a businessman in modern day, like something so obvious. I don't want anything obvious, and this is definitely not an obvious story that we have at this point. Setting, we have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, and chat choice. Alternate universe is free space. That's just like if you want a different version of reality where something different happened in history or something like that. Chat choice is, of course, a free space. 1, present day. All right, so an oil rigger parody in the present. All right. For theme and style, we have Christmas, Hallmark, redemption, bravery, Western, chat choice. Dr. Rachel says, a little disappointed that the dice didn't pick pimp. We're going to make pimp work someday. That one's going to be funny. A pimp story. I'm looking forward to pimp being chosen someday. But yeah, theme and style, we have a lot of great options, replacing Hallmark with erotica. I'm glad erotica's finally gone, because everything leans towards erotica when the super chats start to get involved. So it's nice not to have an excuse to lean that way. 5, it's a Western. Okay. Present day Western, very Taylor Sheridan. About an oil rigger. Isn't that just Landman? I haven't seen Landman. So being a parody of Landman wouldn't make sense, but if I'd seen that, that would have been a really good choice. Wild card. Our options are Toad, Gold, Unicorn, Balloons, Zombie, or chat choice. And wild cards can be absolutely anything. They're just the most random things I could think of when I put them on this list. A toad. These are some random choices. So we got a parody. The chat still needs to pick what type of parody. About an oil rigger in the present day in a Western style with a toad being involved somewhere. I got nothing, chat. I really... I think once we have the parody choice made, I'll be able to narrow it down and figure out what the story is going to be. But right now, you wanted zombie, Rachel? A zombie would complicate things. Zombie would absolutely complicate things at this point. That would be kind of funny. And yeah, if anyone in the chat agrees with Rachel and wants to get a zombie up in here, I super chat starting at $1 can make that happen. All right, we're on Toad. All right, so a parody about an oil rigger in the present day with a Western style and a toad showing up at some random point. Let me check stream elements to make sure, and kick to make sure I'm not missing anybody donating on those sides. Nope, we're looking good. Oil rigger in the present day, Western toad. Yeah, if I'd seen Landman, it would be a very good opportunity to make a parody of that. We could do a parody of Armageddon. Got an oil rigger in the present day. Hail Judas on the YouTube side with a $20 super chat saying, zombie, please. Judas has spoken, and zombie it is. Thank you for the donation, the very kind donation, Judas. All right, Judas, that's way more than $1. So are there any other changes you would like me to make as well? Do you want to pick the parody? Do you want to change any of this as well? I appreciate the support, Judas. You're very, very kind. Legatus, a cowboy is forced to become an oil rigger when the wells on his land produce oil. Interesting. Everyone from the oil rig vanishes, and he can only see a toad on the rig who he talks to while going nuts. Ooh, that would be interesting. Try to incorporate some of those. Still got to figure out what the parody is of. Could be with I, Sam. That's kind of a parody of Princess and the Frog. We could go with a Western oil rigger parody of Princess and the Frog. Legatus is a very straightforward story. We could absolutely do that, where a cowboy becomes an oil rigger when he accidentally discovers oil. Absolutely can incorporate that as well. Yes, Judas liked the zombie. Yeah, and where do the zombies come in? It could be a parody of zombie stories like The Walking Dead. Be a parody of that. And when I hear oil rigger, I don't necessarily think of normal like land drilling. I usually think of deep sea oil drilling and stuff like that, like the beginning of Armageddon. Dr. Rachel, maybe the oil turns people into zombies, where the cowboy oil rigger thinks everyone else is a zombie. Ooh, those are good choices too. Zombification oil. An ancient virus came up with the oil. And that delves into the parody a little bit. Legatus, the rig he is on drilled into a submerged cavern that released zombies and were able to slither up the pipes. That's great. A cowboy talking to a toad just sounds like the Mandalorian and Grogu. Yeah, it does. I really like that one, Legatus, where they're ancient zombies who swim up the pipes and come. I don't know what this is a parody of, but I really like that story. All right, I think we're gonna have that, unless Judas or anyone in the chat disagrees. I think the story we're gonna go with is oil rig out in the ocean, submersible, and there are zombies down there. They come up the pipes, but the oil still is what's causing the infection. So it becomes a little horror parody of absolutely ridiculous proportions on this oil rig as the characters try to keep everything in check, try to make sure that the zombies don't get off, that they don't all die and stuff like that. Let's see. Dr. Rachel, this is turning into a weird parody of Tremors, but it's zombies instead of sandworms. Ooh, we can go with that. We can absolutely just call it oil Tremors as the parody. I Sam, the toad turns into the prince, and then it's just Brokeback Mountain and goes gay just for the sake of it. You would have to send a super chat for that. I'm not writing in Brokeback Mountain without being paid to. All right, I'm gonna just put Tremors here. I haven't seen Tremors, but I know enough about Tremors that I think I could do a little bit for the parody. All right, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that, where it's zombification oil, and there are already zombies down there come up, and it's just this weird little action story. We don't need a whole lot of setup for this one, just a normal or oil rigger day. I'm gonna have to be very careful with the way I say rigger. Oil rigger day. Just a bunch of oil riggers drilling in the Gulf of America. Dr. Rachel, as long as the donation total under $100, I don't have to draw this. Come on, you want to draw oil zombies crawling out of pipes, don't you? Come on, chat, if you want to see Rachel draw zombie covered in oil, crawling out of tubes, slithering their way out of tubes to attack people, we only need to get, what is that, another $80, and we'll make her do that. We'll make her draw it. Alright, oil triggers. Hitting new pocket of oil. Great rush of oil. It's a parody of the Abyss. Yeah, it is kind of a parody of the Abyss as well. The goddess. Alright. I'm going to turn down the music. Hopefully it's not too loud, guys. Sam, you want to draw Brokeback Toads? Well, Sam, with Judas's donation, we're replacing toads with zombies. That's what his donation was for. But we can bring back the toads somehow. Great rush of oil. Celebrations. We'll just have, you know, introduced to the characters. Riggers, partying, and mess all, getting drunk, big bonuses coming, and end of shift. Dr. Richard, oil zombie tremors. Sure, the Brokeback version with a toad. Heck no. Alright, and then we'll have this one be the first attack. Drunk riggers surprised by blackface zombies. I just wrote down blackface zombies. Sam, can zombies be gay for research purposes? I don't know if they can be particularly sexual, but male zombies can eat other male zombies, so I guess that's kind of gay, so sure. I'm sure they can. Blackface zombies wriggle out of oil pipes, came up from submerged cavern, cavemen trapped for millions of years. I know it's probably closer to thousands, but millions. More poetic. I'm gonna add in lots of death, force feeding oil, mix more zombies. So yeah, somehow the virus, the zombie virus, is in the oil itself. God, this is weird. As a reminder, chat, after the dice rolling segment, the highest super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist of any kind. While I'm writing, you could drop a $5 super chat and say, hey, what's a random thing that can happen? An asteroid comes and the oil riggers have to stop the asteroid Armageddon style, and I have to try to make it work. Dr. Rachel, Jed out here making history with the first openly gay zombie. I'm not actually writing openly gay zombies without being paid to. There's no plans for that happening. I was just being hypothetical for research purposes, like Sam was saying. It's just hypothetical for research purposes. We're scientists here. Sam seems like an intelligent person, so yeah, we were just theorizing for the sake of science. Science must advance, Rachel. Science must advance. This is going to be a fairly short story, but it's kind of funny. Hold up. Gotta introduce the Western aspect of it. Riggers lock themselves in different rooms. Safe for now. No one has access to supplies. Not a long-term fix. I'm thinking one of these guys can be introduced as just an obsessive cowboy. Earlier on, an obsessed cowboy enthusiast. No, I butchered the hell out of that. Enthusiast snuck on chaps and dresses up for the party. Hero reveal. Rachel says, I feel like you should change that total to 50 rather than 100 to make the full story and artwork. Maybe. But it is a lot of work to do the story forge. I have to do a lot of prep time to, pre-plot out everything. You need to do a lot of work for that. So I think I think 100 for right now is good, just to make it a rarer occurrence. But we can absolutely negotiate if the chat would rather it be a $50 thing. All right, hero reveal. Cowboy wakes up from his drunken stupor. Missed the first attack. This is his calling. Reveals he snuck 6 shooters aboard. This is definitely getting into the parody territory. Finishes his cowboy look. Dons his hat and holsters. Whoa. I think I accidentally refreshed that. Hopefully I didn't lose too much. Didn't lose anything. Perfect. Plotter up here with the clutch autosave. Finishes his cowboy look, dons his hat and holsters. Ready. Ready for war. Over the top action sequence. Cowboy fights his way to rescue a few pockets of riggers. The cowbot. Alright, the cowbot. Zombies can't get close enough to infect him. Form plan. I think we've included all the things so far. We got the Tremors Abyss kind of parody. It's more a Western parody than anything at this point. Oil riggers set in the present day with a Western style and zombies. So what I'm planning at this point, chat, is this plan that's being formed. I'm thinking Cowboy's gonna get with some of the other oil riggers. One of them's had access to the computer mainframe for a bit and has figured out where the zombies are coming from. Found out that they're coming from below, and it's still coming. There's still more zombies coming in through that pipe, and they need to find a way to close off those pipes and hopefully destroy the subsurface as a cavern where all these zombies are coming from. So they're going to formulate a plan to not blow up the rig. Sam tells people to rescue the riggers. I'm having to be so careful. I'm trying to be so careful, chat. All right. And then would it be too much to have the cowboy be the only survivor who escapes on a jet ski? It starts a civil war. That would be funny. But would you guys like that plan? It is a parody, so I think I'm going to introduce that a little bit later. Or a little bit earlier. Rich company owner's son provides drugs and booze. Has a jet ski. He circles the rig on. Just introducing it later. Ye old cowboy jet ski. Yeah, ye old cowboy jet ski. Damn, Sam, I can't read that one out, but damn. All right, form plan. Rigger has access to the computer. Found out where the zombies are coming from. Still slithering out of the pipe. This is so... Hail John over in the YouTube side. Welcome in. You just came in. You were thinking about seeing Iron Lung this week. I can absolutely recommend it. If you go back in my stream, I already reviewed it. But there are some plot issues, especially with the broader lore and world building of this science fiction universe that he created. But it's got a really strong foundation. Markiplier's acting is actually phenomenal. So I can recommend it, and I hope you enjoy it if you get a chance to go see it. You're killing me, Sam. You're killing me. Alright, still slithering. Need to stop the zombies here. So, John, welcome in. So, for this stream, the Rider Flight podcast, I do some news with science and fiction at the beginning, did the Iron Lung review earlier, but what I'm doing right now is what I call the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment, where with a combination of super chats and dice rolls, I write or plot out little short stories with the chat, a little bit of an ad-lib improv style. So earlier on, we picked the topic, super chats and dice rolls picked that it was going to be a parody story of kind of Tremors or The Abyss about an oil rigger set in the present day with a Western style and zombies. So that's what we're trying to make right now. And at this stage in it, any super chat, high super chat starting at $5 can introduce a surprise twist and just uproot the entire story that we have right now. And I have to try to make it work. That's the thing, is I have to make a good story out of whatever I'm thrown from the chat, from dice rolls. But at this point, we're getting to the climax where this cowboy-ass oil rigger is going to war against the zombies on his oil rig. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know the game either, Iron Lung. I never played the game, but I definitely recommend the movie at this point. All right. They need to get... I need to include that. Need to stop the zombies here. Need to close the pipes. And only the done in person. Cowboy leads the charge. Riggers use any weapons to hand and help fight through the waves of zombies. I don't regret Rachel putting oil riggers as an option. I knew this was going to happen. I'm just being very careful. No regret, just caution. Caution. The word of the day. Or waves of zombies. If you die, manage to make it. Alright? Hi, Sam. You're fucking killing me. I can't read out any of these, but I appreciate them. Jesus, man. Hi, Sam. You're fairly new to the channel, but you've already made yourself into a cornerstone of this chat. Yeah. Alright, Purge plan. We'll call it twist. Zombies have damaged the pipes too much to just close. I'm gonna go full parody at this point. It's ridiculous. Blow up the rig to stop the influx. New crew will be coming. I did mention earlier that they're near the end of their shift. And more will die. And maybe the zombie virus will escape. Ooh, but with the... I have an awful twist in mind, chat. They come at the very end like an epilogue thing that's just awful. But I won't say it here. I want to surprise you guys. But I have something very, very bad planned for the end. Oh my god. This is gonna suck. Hope explosion will burn down the pipes to destroy the underwater cavern. Rig the base to explode. Rachel says, with all this oil rigger talk and Sam's interpretation, it's basically a take on Blazing Saddles. It does sound a lot like Blazing Saddles. I haven't seen that. You're right, Rachel. I do need to see Blazing Saddles, but it does sound a lot like Blazing Saddles too. Alright, rig base to explode. Zombies. Kill everyone. Except... Cowboy sets the detonation and escapes in the rich kid's jet ski. Rig blows up behind Cowboy. Pats himself on back. He won and thinks he saved the world. Hi, Sam. Zombies tell riggers. I need to read your comments before I start saying them. Hi, Sam. Damn. Judah says, "Oh my God, you have to see Blazing Saddles, but prepare yourself." I plan to. I know some of the more racy stuff that's in it, but I do need to watch it absolutely. Legatus, and at the very end, the oil riggers discover that the oil is actually Soylent Green made from zombies. That's a pretty good twist too. But what I have is pretty bad. Yeah, you almost got me there, Sam, with that one. Ooh. All right. This is what I have planned. Massive oil spill. Ecological disaster. I can spell any words whatsoever. Ecological disaster. That's good to know. I can do that. Ecological disaster. Oil makes zombie fish that infect the world's oceans. Adapts to the ocean-only zombies, so humans are safe, but the oceans are screwed. This is not a happy ending. And the environment will change and threaten humans because of the zombie fish. Swimming in the ocean is banned, but that doesn't affect the because they can't swim. Alright, that's the twist epilogue ending. What do you guys think in the chat of that ending? Oh my god. Rachel, don't worry, Jed. Oil riggers can't spell either. Yes, you can see I'm ginger, which means I am an honorary oil person. Person of the oil persuasion. So yeah, I can't spell or swim either. Judas, I hear a sequel coming. Zombie Riggers 2. That's what we're calling this story. This one is called Zombie Riggers. That's what the short story is gonna be called. Fish think how they are in the water. Yeah. The zombie fish ending I think is pretty funny, but Person of Oil might actually be worse, honestly, Rachel says. It might be. It might be. Oh my god. Alright, chat, you have a chance. If you want to see this short story written and artwork of People of Oil done by Rachel, $80 more and we can get there. I think at least for this, I'm gonna go with Rachel's advice. For this one, as a special, just get to $50 and we'll do the short story. So Judas has already done $20, so with another $30 donation or super chat, we'll schedule Story Forge and make Zombie Riggers 1 a reality with a potential sequel on the horizon. Person of Oil. I'm dying a little bit here, chat. Yes, $30 more and you'll get Zombie Riggers 1 with artwork. I don't know what Rachel's gonna pick for that artwork though. Is it gonna be the blackface zombies coming out of the pipes? Is it gonna be Cowboy Man and his assless chaps shooting them? Is it gonna be him riding away in the jet skis? Is it gonna be zombie fish? Hail Judas. Here's $30 and 10 to boot. So a $40 donation from Judas has made this story a reality. Oh. Legatus, I think Dr. Rachel wants to draw someone all oiled up. Maybe. But thank you, Judas. Oil Riggers 1 will be written. I don't know when I'll schedule the stream. I'll have to talk with my wife, but it'll be before the next writer flight. I'll plan it out, outline it in totality, and be prepared to write this absolute monstrosity. Oh my god. This is gonna be insane. Thank you, Judas, for making this happen, and everyone else in the chat for putting in the suggestions that we took in. Legatus definitely helped a ton, and I, Sam, craft this absolutely insane story. So, yes, we'll schedule a story for it for later on this week. Well, I'll write it out. Rachel will do the artwork for it. When those are done, they'll be available to all members of the channel at the Google Drive link. So become a member if you're interested in actually reading this when it's all done, and you'll have access to the whole library of Story 4's short stories as well. But I've been shocked by every single one of these. I should really learn. I should know better at this point to not be surprised at what things we come up with on chat to choose your own adventure. I'm gonna have to write that. I'm gonna be put on a list. The amount of oil rigger jokes and the people of oil jokes that are gonna be in the Story Forge chat are gonna be unbearable for YouTube. Sam, I can't read that one either. But damn. Oh my god. So I think this is a good place to end the stream though. So for Story Forge, just stay tuned to notifications on the channel. I'll put out a post and a Twitter post as well for when we decide to schedule. Once it's scheduled, I'll let you all know, and I hope you'll all be there to enjoy this absolutely wild story that we've come up with. Dr. Rachel, Assless Chaps, and People of Oil. It's going to be wild. Yeah, it fully went parody. I was a little bit worried about it being parody or not. We're in full parody territory. Absolutely. Watermelon. I'm definitely going to be put on a list after this. But that's where we're going to bring this stream to an end. Thank you all so much for watching across YouTube and Kick. Hail, and thank you to Wiley Dave, Legatus, Sam, Dr. Rachel, Weasel for being so active in the chat. This has been one of our most active chats for Writer Flight, so I appreciate you all being here. And of course, thank you to Judas for donating $60 to the Writer Flight Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment and making this story a reality. This coming week for me, later on tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I will be playing some Jump Space with Adam the Renaissance Nerd, dual streaming to our channels in classic split screen co-op fashion. So tune into that. We'll play that for a couple hours tonight. Throughout the rest of the week, I'll game whenever I get a chance. Probably play Star Wars Genesis. Story Forge, like I said, will be out when I can find a place for it with my wife's scheduling. Then this Thursday, Starfleet Academy Episode 5 review will be out. Then this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern, the Where No Man Wants to Go reviews of Starfleet Academy will be back. A panel, myself, Adam the Renaissance Nerd, and Brad Duke Devil will be breaking down this latest episode. Later on that night, we'll also release the recorded edition of Saturday Night Drive-In, where we will be talking about the 80s action hit RoboCop. I've never seen it, so it should be a good discussion. You guys kind of floored me with that story. Kind of fucking floored me. Legatus, if coconut oil comes from coconut, where does baby oil come from? I don't want to ask that. Dr. Rachel, never doubt chat's creativity, Jed. We're here to help. You guys are very creative. You all should be writers too. From Diddy's Closet, dude. On that note, we will bring the stream to an end. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. Until then, have a stellar day and stay curious.